Welcome back to the show. I'm Tim Peter. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the odds are pretty good that OpenAI, ChatGPT, is in big trouble. I am far from the only person who thinks this right now. Betting against the company has become something of a cottage industry. But I think there are a few valuable lessons that you can learn from what's going on that matter for your marketing, that matter for your brand, and that matter for your business overall. You've heard me say many times that gatekeepers gonna gate. I believe in this case that gatekeepers aren't just gonna gate. I believe that the whole idea of gatekeepers gonna gate is gonna kill ChatGPT and OpenAI. All right, I'm probably being a little hyperbolic. They probably don't go away completely by any stretch, but they're certainly in deep, deep trouble because of the fact that Gatekeeper is going to gate. It's going to take me a couple of minutes to explain why, but I hope you'll enjoy this deep dive into why Gatekeeper's Gonna Gate is gonna kill ChatGPT. This is episode 477 of The Big Show. Let's dive in. So, venture capitalists, VCs, need to invest in products, services, and industries that generate outsized returns for their investors. That's their whole reason for being. You don't invest in startups to produce results that mirror the S&P 500. You invest in startups to 10x your money or more. You want to see big, big returns for the money that you invest if you're a venture capitalist. And the digital age has generated remarkable returns for investors. First, there were computers like Apple, Dell, Microsoft, and Intel, right? The technology inside them. Then there was the internet, first Netscape, then Microsoft, then Google and Amazon. And we're going to hang on to that one for a minute because we're going to come back to it. Then there was social, Facebook, and, well, mostly Facebook. With mobile, we had Apple and Google and Samsung. And again, the chips that went inside mobile, like Qualcomm. And while I'm leaving out a handful of other players, you can see the general trend. As I talked about in Digital Reset, any digital ecosystem creates a huge, massive, vast universe of content and experiences. Just incredible quantities of information that people then have to find their way through. They have to sort through to find what they want and need. Consumers struggle to find what they need, and enterprises struggle to be found. Businesses struggle to be found. That creates a huge opportunity. If a company can come along and organize all of that information so it can be found, they've got a really powerful business opportunity. It's just like the card catalog in the library, except you get to charge for it. Google organized the web's information. Amazon collected physical products to buy and handled distribution, but again, that's not really important to our story at the moment. Facebook and LinkedIn, which of course is owned by Microsoft, helped you find the people you wanted to connect with. Apple and Google enabled discovery of mobile apps. By collecting and curating this information, these giants, these soon to be giants, became the gatekeepers of the digital age. And as I've said, two or three times already, gatekeepers going to gate. They're going to turn those gates, those choke points, as a friend of mine said the other day, into places where they can generate revenue. They sit between the customer and the information the customer wants, and they get to charge somebody for the privilege of being able to pass through that gate. Now, we tend to think of gatekeepers as mostly making money from advertising. And they do, really. But Google and Meta Networks are the only ones who are primarily ad first. There's all kinds of other models out there that are used by big tech. Microsoft makes its money selling enterprise software and cloud computing resources, and sure, some advertising too on Bing and LinkedIn. Amazon makes its money from its e commerce platform and offering cloud computing services to businesses, and okay, some advertising. Apple makes its money from selling iPhones and computers and from revenue sharing with developers. And, well, sure, from advertising in its App Store. The point is that each of these tech giants have a dominant, established revenue stream, and that those are going to be tough to disrupt, that those are generally very hard to disrupt because they can turn those into investments in new technologies, either by developing themselves or by acquiring interesting startups all their own. That fact is how we ended up with big tech as we know it today. Sure, some new players are challenging existing members of the club. I'm specifically thinking about TikTok in social. And sure, plenty of companies have done well providing the things that these tech giants need, like computer chips, Qualcomm, NVIDIA, and folks like that, or other support services, ancillary services, Corning with the glass on the iPhone. But big tech and the internet, as we know it, are, from an investment standpoint, somewhat set in the stone. They're a little bit locked in. That status quo is really bad if you're a venture capitalist. Essentially, there's no way to generate outsized returns any longer from the current big tech giants. Whatever explosive growth that they had in them is mostly in their past. They're now essentially blue chips. They reliably pump out stable but boring growth in the high single to low double digits quarter after quarter. There's no 10x. There's no huge opportunity for the kinds of growth VCs have to justify their existence. And so they're hunting for whatever the next internet, the next mobile, the next social might happen to be. What is it that will attract the attention and desire of customers such that they'll exceed the kinds of returns that they expect to exceed again and again and again? That's also why most of the hype cycles of the last few years have been driven as much by tech investors as they've been driven by customer demand. Think about things like the metaverse. Think about things like crypto. Think about things to a lesser extent like AI. 3 years ago, I suggested in an episode called The Future of the Metaverse that the metaverse itself was a solution in search of a problem. I predicted that while VR would see some progress in industrial applications and gaming within a relatively short period, it probably wouldn't be huge for casual gaming or as a desktop replacement for probably 10 years or more. Well, that was 3 years ago, and I think I got that one mostly right. So much so that according to the Los Angeles Times, and this is a quote, Meta Platforms' Mark Zuckerberg is expected to meaningfully cut resources for building the so-called metaverse, an effort that he once framed as the future of the company and the reason for changing its name from Facebook Inc. The article continues. Executives are considering potential budget cuts as high as 30% for the Metaverse Group next year, which includes the virtual worlds product Meta Horizon Worlds and its Quest virtual reality unit. To be fair, Meta Platforms, that is, Facebook, needed the metaverse to work as much for it to get out from behind Apple and Google's gates as to fuel VC growth. But both Meta, the company, and VCs were operating from the same perspective. Own the next platform fueling significant future growth. Meta already calls their artificial intelligence Meta AI. Maybe that's what they'll change the name of the entire company to next instead of Meta Platforms, right? As for crypto, yeah, it continues to generate buzz, but it's still relatively small when we think in terms of, the economy as a whole. Bitcoin is valued at roughly $1.9 trillion dollars, and the entirety of crypto is valued at around $3.2 trillion dollars. While those numbers are hardly trivial, Microsoft's market cap is $3.7 trillion dollars. Google's market cap is $3.8 trillion dollars. Apple's is 4.1 trillion. Nvidia is almost 4.5 trillion. Even Meta Platforms, who I talked about a minute ago for lagging among big tech, is worth roughly $1.7 trillion, dollars, almost as much as all of Bitcoin all by itself. So that's hardly a ringing endorsement for crypto replacing our entire economy, let alone the globe's economy, and the returns that such a replacement would generate for VCs. All of that brings us to AI, and specifically OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. AI is the current goose that lays the golden eggs. And I want to be very fair. I am super bullish on AI longer term. It also has two huge benefits if you're a venture capitalist. The first, as I just said, is that it is a genuinely transformative technology, much like the internet or mobile or social. It is already looking like it's going to be as big as that, or if not bigger. And so there's some real potential there. Two, and this is really critical to my entire thesis, customers and companies alike are putting AI to work today. They're using it. Unlike VR or crypto, people are adopting AI in meaningful numbers. OpenAI has something like 800 million people who use it regularly, and it's hit those numbers faster than any other technology has in human history. So if you're a VC, you'd be like, that's great. I should be thrilled. I'm not so sure, though. I'm not convinced that this is actually the good story they think it's going to be. Why? Well, because I can't actually see how OpenAI makes money compared to the big tech folks that exist already. I cannot see how they continue to fund their growth with their current spend. OpenAI insists that they'll generate $125 billion dollars in revenue by 2029. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining why I think that's unlikely. I'll link in the show notes to others who I think do a much better job of that than I possibly can. I will say that going from roughly $13 billion dollars in revenue this year to $125 billion dollars in just a few years would require greater growth than any company anywhere ever has done. Ever. Color me skeptical. I'm just not that bought in that that's really possible. And one of the reasons this is, and it's hardly the smallest of them, is because OpenAI is also competing against the members of big tech. And as we talked about a couple minutes ago, as I talked about a couple of minutes ago, none of those need artificial intelligence to make much money for them. Google and Facebook will still sell ads, only those ads will be better and presented to more people because of AI. They're already doing this today, not just with large language models, but with more traditional machine learning techniques. That's still AI, that still works. Microsoft will still sell operating systems and cloud computing. Only those will be better because they have also included AI capabilities into those tools. Apple will still sell iPhones and iPads and watches and Macs. And maybe someday VR glasses. Who's to say? Only those will also include AI capabilities on those devices. And Amazon will continue to sell, everything else you could want to buy, plus cloud computing with AI built in. I'm increasingly convinced the more I think about this, the more I think about big tech and what they do and what they offer to their customers, the more I'm convinced that AI isn't a product unto itself, but that instead it's a feature that makes other products better. Think about what happened when all of the companies that were never connected to the internet connected to the internet and suddenly got better. But the price of the internet isn't a meaningful price that you pay every day as a customer. And if that's the case, ChatGPT can't be OpenAI's product. They need a product instead that everybody wants, that their AI makes better. If that's the case, AI cannot be OpenAI's product. They need instead a product that AI makes better that everybody wants. Maybe it's ChatGPT. Maybe, we'll see. Maybe it's Sora, their video generator. Again, we'll have to see. Their ChatGPT apps hint that they understand the problem, that they need to become a gatekeeper too. Something I talked about not long ago in an episode called Are ChatGPT's Apps Good for Your Business? They want to be that party, that gatekeeper between customers and the content and experiences they're looking for. We're going to have to see if they manage to do it. Because today, OpenAI is on the wrong side of today's existing gatekeepers, and they don't have a clear path to get to the other side. They launched a browser to try to figure out how to do that. It's why they're talking about building devices. And it's why they've talked about launching a social network. They need a way to become the gatekeeper themselves, to be the thing that customers want to go to that becomes the gate that they can gatekeep. Until one or more of OpenAI's products land in a meaningful monetary way, they've got a huge risk of being upstaged by one of the existing gatekeepers who simply can bundle a good enough version of AI into the tools that their customers already use. Now, there's a couple of reasons, and I swore that this would be true at the beginning of this. There's a couple of reasons why all of this matters to you. The first is that you need to get comfortable with multiple AIs and how they work to the benefit of your business. Yeah, I said this earlier. I don't think that OpenAI is going to completely disappear anytime soon. But if you're building everything, if your business value depends upon ChatGPT and OpenAI being the tools that everybody uses, that might be a problem longer term if they're not the ones that win in the marketplace. The second thing that matters to you is more directly tied to your own business, and that is the biggest competitor any company faces always is inertia. Customers tend to do what they always do until something comes along that is so significantly better that switching to the new thing is worth the trouble. I'm simply not convinced that that's the case here. VCs need OpenAI to succeed, but customers don't. They have plenty of other quality options. They could use Gemini. They could use Copilot. They could use Meta AI. And to use these, they don't have to change anything they're doing. Sure, there's Perplexity and Claude, but customers have to do something different to use those too. By contrast, your customers don't have to do anything different to use the AI tools built into Facebook and Instagram. They don't have to do anything different to use the AI tools built into Microsoft 365, Outlook, and Edge. They don't have to do anything different to use Gemini built into Chrome and Gmail and Google Docs and Maps and Search. Those AI capabilities simply exist without customers having to take any real action beyond doing what they already do every day. And so the lesson there for your business is that if you want customers to change their behaviors, you need to make sure that A, your product, service, or experience is better enough that people will think it's worth changing their behaviors. B, that you make it easy for customers to change. And kudos to OpenAI, because I think they're trying real hard to do both of those. C is where they start to run into trouble, is that it helps if you're not competing with gatekeepers, tempting customers to do what they've always done. That's a huge burden for OpenAI, even if they manage to solve for A and B. Oh, and I left out D, they have to find a way to pay for all this. The good news for you is that your motivations don't have to align with venture capitals. On some level, it doesn't matter what AI tool your customers use. It matters that you show up in AI answer engines and that customers can find your brand and business there, no matter which one they prefer. It matters that you track your prompt brand equity, which I recently talked about in an episode called What the Brand is the Prompt Really Means for Your Business. And it matters that you convince customers to continue buying your products, services, and experiences no matter how they find you. Because then, even if VCs and OpenAI lose, your business still wins. And ultimately, that's all that really matters. Now, looking at the clock on the wall, we are out of time for this week. I'm willing to bet that you might know someone who would benefit from what we've talked about today. Are you thinking of someone? Why not send them a link to the episode? And let them know what you think too. Keep the conversation going. You can also find the show notes for this episode, episode 477, as well as an archive of all past episodes by going to timpeter.com/podcast. Again, that's timpeter.com/podcast. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you're looking for something new to read, something that goes more deeply into this topic, I would love to suggest Digital Reset, Driving Marketing and Customer Acquisition Beyond Big Tech, and Written by Me. It dives into today's topic in even greater detail. Please, if you have a minute, pick up a copy, share it with your friends, and let me know what you think of the book. I would genuinely appreciate it. Finally, thank you so much for listening today. I know I say it all the time, but this show would not happen without you. I'll be back with a new episode next week. Until then, please be well, be safe, and as always, be excellent to each other. I'll see you soon.